Most first builds don't fail because of money. They fail because of momentum. People don't quit because parts are expensive. They quit because they accidentally build themselves into a corner they weren't prepared to get out of. And the worst part? Most of these mistakes feel like the right move at the time. This isn't a "don't do this mod" video. You can build whatever you want. This is about the patterns I've seen over and over that easily add years to builds without people actually realizing it. If you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or feel like your project is judging you every time you walk into the garage, this episode's for you. I'm Johnny O. I've built a few cars over the years, some successful, some not, and some that taught me more by falling apart than they ever could being finished. Some of the hardest lessons I've learned weren't mistakes I've made with my hands. They were the ones I've made handling a build way too early. A couple of these mistakes didn't just slow things down, they almost ended my journey entirely. The first mistake was just tearing down too much, too fast. The most common first mistake isn't a lack of skill, it's having way too much enthusiasm without sequencing. You buy a new car, you're motivated, and you finally have time. Then you start taking everything apart. The interior's out, panels off, your engine's half disassembled. Suddenly the car can't move, you can't drive. You can't stack up any small wins anymore. Everything feels heavy and cumbersome. Nothing feels finished. The build stops being a car and it starts being a burden. Tearing things down may feel productive, but momentum comes from finishing, not dismantling. I learned this the hard way when I first tried to get into forced induction. I didn't really know what I was doing yet, so I did what a lot of people would do, trust the shop. They told me the turbo install would take them a few hours, but give them a full day. At worst, maybe 2 or 3 days tops. Days turned into weeks. I'd stop by after work and the car hadn't been moved. Nothing was touched since the last time I was there. They weren't bad people. They just weren't motivated because the car wasn't theirs. When I finally pushed for it to be finished, they rushed. They crossed coolant and oil lines, left hoses loose. The car came back worse than it went in. The problem wasn't the shop. The problem was I handed over a build I didn't fully understand. With no structure, no sequencing, and no way to protect my momentum. That car was down for months. And when I got it back, I had to clean everything up afterwards. That was the moment I realized if I wanted my build to survive, I had to stay involved enough to keep momentum alive. That was the moment I stopped depending on shop to save my build. I told myself if I'm gonna bring something to a shop, it's gonna be out of luxury, not out of necessity. I don't want to expect someone else to do something I don't fully understand myself. Because the minute you outsource understanding, you outsource control. And here's where it gets tricky. Sometimes the thing slowing your build down isn't a shop. It's you. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't care, but because you're chasing something that sounds responsible. Perfection. I'm guilty of it myself. Which leads us to mistake number 2, chasing perfection instead of progress. This one's sneaky. You tell yourself, I'll finish it once it's right. So one part delays another, then that delay justifies an upgrade. Then that whole build waits for a version of perfection that just became a moving goalpost. Perfection sounds disciplined, but progress is what actually gets cars back on the road. A finished car teaches you more than a perfect plan ever will. But here's the other trap. Sometimes we don't delay the build, we derail it. And we do it with good intentions, which is mistake number 3, buying parts without a plan. This one hurts because we've all done it. You see a deal, you see a build online, you buy the part. But the part doesn't exist in isolation, it costs something. Fitment changes, sequencing changes, timelines shift, everything gets pushed back more or you go in a whole new direction completely that you didn't originally plan for. Without a plan, parts don't move you forward. They stack up. And over time, they turn into guilt. A build plan isn't about limiting creativity, it's about protecting momentum. Mistake number 4 is building for Instagram instead of use. This one's a newer problem we didn't have back in my OG days. You start building for angles instead of experiences, for photos instead of driving, for validation instead of enjoyment. And when the car doesn't live up to the highlight reels in your head, motivation dies. The irony? The most compelling builds are the ones that get used. Use creates stories, stories create meaning. Meaning is what keeps people building. And when that meaning starts to fade, that's when things start to get tough. That's when the garage gets quieter. That's when you start wondering if maybe this just isn't for you. If you're feeling stuck, you're not broken. You're not lazy. You didn't fail. You probably just pulled too many threads at once without realizing it. Momentum isn't about discipline, it's about structure. And once structure is in place, motivation usually follows. Your first build doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be alive. Alive means moving. Alive means learning. Alive means you're still showing up. If this episode felt a little too familiar, good. That means you care enough to feel it. And if you care, you can fix it. You don't need a new car. You don't need a bigger budget. You need structure. And now, you know where the traps are. But here's the part nobody talks about. Sometimes the thing slowing your build down isn't the garage. It's a story you're telling yourself about what chasing a dream is supposed to look like. And that's where we're going next. This is Tuner Playbook, a guide for dreamers to build something extraordinary.